Party nerds, 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 party nerds.
What's going on, party nerds? This is Grandmaster FAQS back for you one time again for my next installment. And today I have an interesting trending topic that seems to be on everybody's minds a little bit. This past weekend, the number one movie in America was a horror film by the name of It by Stephen King. Registered up to $117 million over one weekend. The biggest opening for a horror movie ever. So this brought to mind like a little bit, and I just had to do a little bit of research and had to get, of course, a lot of feedback. Are we starting to see a little bit of rebirth or revitalization of horror films? Has it caught on in a popular phase like it used to back in the 80s? You see, when I was, of course, knee-high to a kickstand, Stephen King was running shit. And when I mean running shit, like he had probably a hit movie for almost every year in the 80s and into the 90s. And the thing is, you don't even have to go down the horror film gauntlet. You can go into his dramas as well. You can start with Children of the Corn, The Shining, Christine, Pet Sematary, Silver Bullet, Maximum Overdrive, Cujo. Don't let me just throw The Running Man in there. That was written by Stephen King. Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger did a Stephen King movie, and it was goddamn awesome. The one-liners in The Running Man will fuck up your whole day. Just because they threw Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, and that Austrian accent just kills anything that you ever put on paper. He ran down into the 90s. Shawshank Redemption. Probably didn't know that was him. Misery. It, the TV series with John Ritter, Tim Reed. The Stand. In 1994, there was a miniseries. But with that being said, this is only one man. Also during that time period where horror movies sort of were the extent of popular cinema, we were introduced to our iconic characters like Freddy, like Jason, like Michael Myers. But, in that fold, we also even got a sense of a little bit of the cheesiness that horror movies can bring. Like Killer Clowns from Outer Space. You just watched it, and if you ever get the opportunity to pull up something as cheesy as Killer Clowns from Outer Space, you will laugh your head off, for one. It is not scary at all, but it is very entertaining. All the Leprechaun movies, except please do not even try to get Leprechaun in the Hood. Pumpkinhead, Ghoulies. But there's been this dichotomy that, a sort of formula does tend to go well with horror movies. It's the experience of fright within children. And this formula has been very successful with a lot of Stephen King movies and a lot of just horror movies in general. With Pet Sematary being the one everybody just remembers, Gage being this little 4-year-old kid who came back from the dead after being run over by a car and was tormenting the shit out of everybody in his house. Children of the Corn is a bunch of Jedediahs and every other biblical name I could possibly imagine. Literally the reason that you probably just don't pull up to a rural area and talk to anybody because you don't deem them trustworthy. But then, we had an off period. We had an off period because those cheesy movies actually got sequels and thirds and fourths and sixes and sevens. And it killed the genre, to the point where, I can't say that anybody was really fucking with horror movies because they weren't getting scared anymore. And it's taken a while. We've had a good string of movies that have tried to push the envelope. Where we've seen lately with take 1999's The Blair Witch Project, which is like a first-person shooter for horror films. Just strap cameras to everybody in the goddamn room and let their anguish provide the horror of what's exactly happening. You never get to see the villain in the entire movie, but yet you are almost cringing in your seat because you have no idea what's coming after him or what's going to happen next. But I take onus to a lot of my favorites during that era, the 80s to be particular. I was a big fan of The Evil Dead, of Creepshow and Creepshow 2, around like 82 and 87. Twilight Zone the movie. I was a big fan of Tales from the Crypt, the series, which ran from around like 89 to 96. These were big for me because it was like a multi-array of little vignettes in Creepshow and Twilight Zone the movie that everyone was thought-provoking. Like, not only did they scare the shit out of you, but they made you think. And once again, like I said, it took a while for it to really catch on. So in the early 2000s, I was in the military, by the way, and after Blair Witch Project, The Ring came out. Samira coming out of the well with the VHS tape. That wouldn't scare nobody now. You can't find a VHS tape to save your life. If you know of any blockbusters, let me know. Saw came out in 2004, as well as The Grudge around that time. Very popular movies. But was it enough to like carry the genre and move it forward to the next generation? Hostel came out at that time. Eli Roth, who's done an amazing job with his gore and partake in his movies. Then we had a string of, sort of ghostly type movies as Paranormal Activity started to catch hold in 2007. And really ran the gauntlet. I've known people that have gone to see that movie probably 3 times in a week because they thought that they missed something. That something they just did not see was in front of them, but they didn't manage to get a hold of. But let's take into a little bit of current events. It has always been a story that could obviously reach audiences on a grander scale. It used the popular formula of children and the fear of children within a polarizing character, such as a clown, that is supposed to entertain children. Is always there to provide a little bit of folly, jester-esque type personalities, miming, whatever may have you, turning that against children so that there is this demonic monster amidst an entire town that has seen children disappear tenfold for decades. And it was always going to work. It worked with the TV series. I remember watching it as a kid. It was on for 2 weeks. Uh, it was a 2 hour first part with all the kids, and then there was a 2 hour second part the next week with all. Whereas they grew up as adults, which we will probably see when it too does finally hit theaters. But that's not all. You know, last year we had a out of nowhere hit with Get Out by Jordan Peele from Key and Peele. We would have never saw this coming. A horror movie that sort of just played with your mind at all costs, your social consciousness, and made you feel bad about yourself at the end of the movie. It was very thought provoking. The way it was challenged on all angles, the editing and the imagery that was brought forth by the hypnotisms in those scenes, excellent. But what I've noticed with, of course, a lot of genres, and I'm glad that horror is catching fold, is that the stories are starting to get somewhat better. They are character driven. You know, they're not more character driven into the villain as they usually are. They're character driven into not necessarily the hero, but the cast themselves. You know, even if that not that main figure character is not one person, but maybe like seven people. Like there isn't It with the Losers Club, or take a movie like Teeth, for instance, that came out in 2008, where a young woman, the horror of this young woman had a mutation of teeth that just so happened to be in her nether regions. And Lord only knows this shit was pure horror. That's a movie that movie and It Follows in 2014 are movies that will make you celibate for about a month. You will not want to fuck with nobody after that movie. But if you're a fan of, very demonic villains, very polarizing characters that when they appear on screen will strap you into your seat, I suggest 2014's Babadook. Babadook, man. I watched this movie off of the recommendation of a friend, and I was almost applauding at the end because of how good this movie was. And TV is also taking hold too. You know, we've witnessed plenty of movies that have just been able to give us that, kind of like that drug that we need when the movies aren't out. Take The Strain, for instance, on FX. Guillermo del Toro executive produced, kind of, sort of based off the characters that you've seen in Blade 2. Probably one of the most interesting series that is out right now. American Horror Story's been running since 2011 for almost 7 years. And then Stranger Things. Stranger Things has now been on Netflix for a year, and it's new and it's almost a cult classic already. Has made the cast itself iconic. You know, they're seen in public and paparazzi is like running up on these kids like, oh my God. You know, they were sporting them at the Oscars and at the Emmys like they were trophies. But we're still getting a lot of good content. You know, Insidious that came out in 2010, The Conjuring in 2013 has had multiple sequels that have all done well. Annabelle, which is now the spin-off of The Conjuring, that has had a 2014 movie and this year's Annabelle Creation, which has come out in 2017. So the one thing that I do say is that we hope that they keep pushing the envelope. We hope we don't see the cheesy. You know, I think the 80s kind of got a grip and a handle on, you know, taking a lot of that cheese out. And we know as an audience that, you know, we don't want to be tinkered with anymore. If we come there for a horror movie, just know this: directors, screenwriters, writers, we want to be scared. We want to be propelled to not only be scared ourselves, we want to be able to bring a date and have that person be scared. We want to be able to bring our kids and have them be scared. You know, this is exactly what we want. I don't want to be at a movie theater watching a horror movie and laughing at the scenes. I don't want to time when the girl's going to trip because she's going to get stabbed. You know? But I just look forward to what's to come. I do. It's definitely interesting to see horror get back on its feet. And shout out to Faces of Death, whoever the creators of Faces of Death were. When I was a kid, I had to sneak that damn videotape under my pillows every damn week because I went and got a new one every week for like almost 2 months. Changed my life. I've been a fan of horror movies ever since. All right, this is Grandmaster FAQS. Once again, comment down below. You can subscribe to Partynerdz on our YouTube page. Check us out on Wildfire Radio, 6:45 every Tuesday. Or you can check us out on our podcast at Partynerdz Presents Grandmaster FAQS or the Partynerdz Podcast. All right? Take it easy, folks. I'll see you next time.
Partynerdz, 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 Partynerdz.